Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. Tonight we have A Strange Occurrence in a Graveyard. So, A Strange Occurrence in a Graveyard is by RedNovaTyrant on creepypasta.wiki. And before we dive into the rundown and our actual thoughts and grammar inquisition and all that kind of fun stuff, let's do our initial recommendations. I'm gonna partially recommend this one.
I'm going to not recommend this one.
Okay.
I'm going to recommend this one.
What is happening this year?
I don't know. I think this is the exact same things we said last time, too.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. Now I'm on the fence. But let's dive into the story and find out why. So, starting with the rundown, Nair, because we never get his name or her name, is a student of St. Francis Xavier's University for Gifted Youngsters. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
It's just the name is like it's poisoned now because of pop culture. No, they're a student of St. Francis Xavier University in Antigonish, Nova Scotia. For fun, Nair and their friend R, which is an alias, obviously, go on night walks around town, just shooting the shit and hanging out and such. Because there's nothing else to do in town other than go to a bar. So they like to go out at night and walk and talk. One night, they decide to go to the graveyard near campus where Nair has a great uncle buried. It's January, so there's ice and snow, but the duo make it to the cemetery. It's bright enough this night for them to look around, and after working up the nerve to actually go into the cemetery, they start searching around the grave for the grave. Slipping and falling a little, and getting weirded out by a few sounds and a cleanly stripped bone they discover in the middle of like one of the paths. They decide to speed things along to get out of here faster and split up to search. Let's split up, gang. As Nair finds his great uncle's grave, R finds something else. R calls out in a panic and takes Nair to a freshly dug up grave where the coffin has been ripped open and the body is half eaten. As they proceed to promptly nope away from that situation, Nair does eventually look back while they're running to see a humanoid form in a loincloth come into view up the hill from where they were in the darkness. Fortunately for the pair, the man didn't follow them out of the graveyard, and they made it back to the college safely. Finn. So, with that out of the way, let's move on to everyone tolerates the grammar inquisitions. At this point, I've got two.
I took one picture of the cemetery later when we were climbing up the road, but it does not include the shrine or the crucifix. And I ain't going back for another picture. So the last period, where it says, but it does not include the shrine or the crucifix. And I ain't going back for another picture.
It's probably going to end up in Mikey's conjunction judgment, but I actually looked at this part here, and I think that period could easily just have been like an ellipses. That way, it would have suggested some kind of like foreshadowing to the tone.
Yeah.
Like there's like, but like talking about the photo and like how, but it doesn't show the shrine or the crucifix. I mean, like there is a photo in the image or in the story that we get. But then it's like ... and I ain't going back to that to further picture.
You know, which makes it seem like when he's writing it, he's thinking back to what happened. He's like, yeah, I'm not going back there.
Yeah, and then that entices the reader. It's like, oh, why? Like, you're going to tell us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like with the rest of the story. So yeah, and ellipses would have fixed that entire period problem there. And then to the last one here I have. I could vaguely remember the general location of my great uncle's grave. Enough to know that it wasn't right at the front of the cemetery, but somewhere at least on top of the hill. I don't think the at least needs to be there. Like, it could have easily just said enough to know that it wasn't right at the front of the cemetery, but somewhere on top of the hill. Like, but somewhere at least on top of the hill. Like, it just kind of didn't jive with me.
Yeah,
when I was
that's
reading,
fair.
it was like, seemed weird.
Mm.
Also, maybe at the beginning of that sentence, like, it's like, I could vaguely remember the general location of my uncle's graveyard enough to, maybe it should, like, I could only vaguely remember the general location. Like, maybe add an only in there, just because, like, this one might be a little bit of a nitpick, but it just seemed like it's like I could vaguely remember the general location of my great uncle's grave enough to know that it wasn't right at the front of the cemetery. Blah blah blah. It's like, I don't know. It felt like there was something missing in there to me.
I could take that part or leave it, but the first part you brought up, I do agree with you.
So the removal of at least.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's fair. And then with that, I'm done with my grammar inquisitions. So, Mikey, the E stands for evil.
I have a conjunction junction.
Weird. It's almost like I foreshadowed it.
Mm-hmm.
And next stop, Conjunction Junction. Doot, doot.
But it's still a fun town to wander around at night. It's not something we do every single day, but it's more often than not that we just get bored hanging around his apartment. After 3 years, Halo Night tends to lose its luster. So we walk. So I asked R if he wanted to go and try to find my great uncle's grave. But then we realized it was a combination of night lights on the graves and the reflection of other light sources as we got closer that made them appear to move. And I ain't going back for another picture. It was an odd laugh, not a natural one, but disjointed, almost like someone just saying the words, ha, ha. It was a common thing on campus during the spring and fall, random days where the whole campus smelled like cow pies. So we aimlessly wandered around looking for my family name on one of the epitaphs. It had no meat on it, no blood splatter. It was simply stripped clean. It was pretty creepy to just find a bone lying in the middle of the graveyard like that, but the whole area was surrounded by forest, so it was more likely the remains of some feral cat or dog's dinner. It was over on the right-hand side of the cemetery. I could tell thanks to the approaching crucifix. Or the blood-stained snow. It was an absolute mess, the whole thing. And by how fresh the pile of soil was, we could only assume that whatever had done this, man or beast, was still nearby. Finn.
Wow. the one part that got me was it's like I could figure out where I was based on like the crucifix or the blood-stained snow. Yes, the two landmarks of the cemetery.
When you're describing all that too, they were saying like they're looking around the cemetery for the epitaph, like the gravestone or whatever. But when they found it, it was stripped clean of all the flesh. So like in this universe, all of the gravestones are made of meat.
Oh God, it's bone stones or tomb bones.
Well, they live in a meatscape at this point, probably.
Oh
So
God,
there's a lot more
is
meat everywhere.
Oh God. Oh Lord. Also, before the epitaph thing came up, I was like, are they just walking around a farmer's field?
Yeah,
Like it smells like cow pies.
yeah, that's fair. Hmm.
Yeah.
But for those unaware, Mikey does these little strings of sentences to highlight all the sentences in a story that start with words that they probably shouldn't, like its, ands, or buts, because there's always better words to use.
Yes.
It's way too easy of a trap to fall into when writing. Everybody does it. We get it.
Yeah, we're not centering out one person. We're centering out the problem as a whole.
It's just a fun way to highlight all the sentences that do that instead of just listing them plainly.
Yeah. And you get really funny, like out of context things out. Like it came at them at full force. It was a squirrel.
Yeah. That was the birth of this.
That was literally the progenitors episode for that. But I guess that'll do it for Mikey for Grammar Acquisition. So Gamer.
Okay. I'm not the biggest on parties and drinking super hard. A shot with friends once in a while isn't so bad. So there's not much for one to do in town, since the only places of interest that aren't another friend's room to hang out in are bars. So the whole thing is a little long, partially because of the cut-ins and extra info, which are two different formats also. The first one is done with round brackets, and the second one is like dashed out in between.
Yep.
So I suggest breaking this up a bit, or if you want to keep the formatting, if you want to keep the extra bits that are being, how do you actually describe that? Like when it's like bracketed out and it's saying something different. It's like
when you want to leave in the extra asides or the commentary.
Yeah, if you're going to be doing asides, keep the formatting the same throughout the whole piece.
Yeah, because
especially when it's in the same sentence.
Yeah, because like the bracketing part is actually a legit like type of formatting for like that kind of thing, but like they have brackets and then that as well in the same thing. So it's like yeah,
you got to commit to your format. So either commit to that format or just remove the bracketed sections entirely, because they don't really add a whole lot in this sentence, to be honest. Because like removing them, it would sound like this. I'm not the biggest on parties and drinking super hard, but there's not much for one to do in town, since the only places of interest are bars. Because that's the long short of what is being said in this. The fact that he takes a shot with friends once in a while is kind of implied by saying that he's not the biggest at parties and drinking super hard, which means he will drink a bit. And the only place of interest being bars, like of course that's what it's saying, but it's kind of implied that you wouldn't hate going to your friend's house either, you know?
Yeah.
Because why would you? It's not like literally the only place you ever want to go is bars. So both those parts are kind of implied, not necessary, and make it a little long.
Yeah, it's also like I kind of get what you're. I think what you're saying is like, honestly, I definitely agree with your your restructuring of that sentence, because like, like it's getting to the point. It gets to the point, like, and all the other stuff is kind of superfluous or like fluff in a way.
Yeah, and there's one later on. Actually, did I make a note of it? I don't think I did. There's one later on where there is an aside, and I am all for it because it adds something new. I should have taken a note of it. Where to go? Let's see if I can just do a Control F for a bracket. Hell yeah. Is it the Halo Knight one? Is there another one? Yeah, well, the Halo Knight one that follows after is pretty good too. Like, I don't have a problem with that, because it's saying you get bored hanging around in his apartment, and then you give a little bit of context as to why it's boring. Because they basically just play Halo, and after 3 years, that's getting old.
Yeah.
It actually adds. And then later on, it's saying, like, he finds the gravestone, and here's a picture of it. And then there's an aside saying, I've hidden the name and the dates for my own anonymity.
Yeah.
So, like, that makes sense that he would put that in, because it explains the picture. So those two instances are good. Just the first one seemed off to me.
Yeah.
but I shall move on.
Mhm.
Speaking of pictures,
Yeah.
The first one that we get. All right, blanket statement. Actually, pictures in general, I like them all. That being said, this first picture, the location of it, I feel like could be placed a lot better. Because in this section, where the picture is of just the
Cemetery.
Yeah, just a shot of the cemetery, a generalized kind of picture. It's put next to like when they just first mention it. I feel like it should be 2 or 3 paragraphs down when they actually enter the graveyard. Because as soon as you enter, you have a visual.
Mm-hmm.
Also, yeah, like right below like the paragraph that says or that ends with and I ain't going back for another picture. Like it talks about that one. I think that might have been like the best spot for it. Or do you think?
Yes,
you
exactly.
think yeah. Okay.
100%. Because I put 2 paragraphs down, and that is 2 paragraphs down.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I just looked down 2 paragraphs. I was like, oh no, that's perfect right there.
Yeah, and then speaking of pictures, I had an issue with the bone picture because I was reading this on mobile, and the bone picture actually shows up before it's even mentioned in the story.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yep.
That's unfortunate. I mean, that might be that might just be a formatting issue with the website. But
yeah.
How does it change the formatting so much just on mobile?
I'm curious. Yeah. Well, because there is like a different form. Like there is like it's just the way like the browser app on phones sometimes skews a website.
Yeah, because on the computer I can make my window as small as possible, but it's not moving the pictures around. But I guess for mobile it's different.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot more like it tends to like push them either like between like paragraphs or like not to the side sometimes. So
I wonder if like in some previous episodes we've done, we've complained about the position and location of images. I wonder if that's because they're meant to be viewed on mobile. And
maybe
on mobile they'll be where we actually want them to be. Or
maybe I don't know.
Where the writer intended them to be.
I guess we'll have to start like now, like checking the app or checking the website on our phones to see like if the photos change positions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if there's like a discrepancy, like
Yeah.
I feel like it should be somewhere else, and yeah.
I mean, I also have an issue with the bone photo, but like I'll get to that in my notes. Otherwise, I like the photos. Like otherwise, the photos are great, but
Yeah,
there's one thing
like
with the actual
pictures are like we're talking about it here, anyways.
Yeah,
I like that the pictures are done as in like dude went out and like with props and took pictures specifically for the story instead of finding stock stuff.
Yeah, like they actually like this is like I have a very strong feeling that this person is actually like lives or spent time in Antigonish.
Yeah.
So I hope that I'm saying that right. I meant to like
Probably
check to see if like how you say because like I mean it's a Canadian name, but like it's also like it could be like some other way of saying it, like how Newfoundland isn't Newfoundland or Newfoundland. It's Newfoundland. Like that's how you properly say that.
Really?
Yeah. That's how they like how like the native like Newfies like say it. Like it's if how the Islanders say it. It's Newfoundland. We're not like Newfoundland or Newfoundland. So but
I shall move on.
Yes.
I'm surprised neither of you got this. I'm wondering if I'm just reading this wrong, because this seemed pretty obvious to me. As we approached it, though, I stopped dead in my tracks as I heard a ha ha in the distant.
Oh.
It says distant instead
Did
of
I?
distance.
Yeah, I must have typonized over that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got one.
We got one. Thank you, Grammar Janine.
This is a actually, is this the one you talked about with the ellipses?
Yes. Oh, the
I didn't even say what I'm talking about yet.
I'm sorry.
Can you see through my eyes what I'm looking at?
Yes, I've hacked your eyes.
Damn it. Downside of being a robot. It's the part with the bloodstained snow, where it's like But then I noticed the bones scattered about, period, or the blood-stained snow, period.
No, that's not the one I meant.
Okay, well, either way, I feel like that one should be ellipsed out. Because for the same purpose. I'll read the sentence proper, though. At first, I thought he was just showing me a grave in progress, but that was before I noticed the bones scattered about, period, or the blood-stained snow, is how it's written. But I feel like it should be the bones scattered about, ellipses, and the blood-stained snow.
Yeah. Also, the way you kept saying bone scattered is like, bone scattered, ready?
Yeah. Also, quick note on this, just because I don't have one down there. Would there be blood in this situation at all?
Oh,
from a rotting body? Don't they drain the body and such? Like, I've seen the mortuary
yeah.
assistant game.
I've also watched the Phantasm movies, which actually deal a lot with like prepping a body and stuff. And like I've also seen like some shows on like true crime stuff and like when it comes to like coroners and such. So they definitely drain the bodies before they and fill them with like formaldehyde or some kind of like solution,
embalming fluid or whatever
yeah,
it is.
Yeah, an embalming fluid of some kind. So yeah, those bodies are definitely. Unless it was like an older type of body, like generally the body is drained of blood before it goes into the grave.
Also, well, this being said as well, like they put other stuff in it, but it may be tinted red just from it being in the body. Like I don't know.
Oh, that
when it comes out, it still might be a reddish tone. So to a college kid who's just seeing this, it might still look like blood, especially on white snow, which will pick up the color really easily.
Well, yeah, also I was going to say, like, unless it has some kind of like anti-freezing solution, like this is January, mind you, it's been a mild January according to Nair. So like
it's also buried in the snow.
It was also and that even adds up then even further because like generally because like it'd be like a cooler a cooler temperature down there as well, but like would there actually be liquid blood or liquid fluid of some kind, or would it be like icy or like slushy or something like that? Yeah, like
it might be like a slushy.
Yeah, but yeah, you definitely point out, it's like there may not be that might not be the now maybe what they're seeing isn't the blood from the corpse, but the blood from the grave the graveyard caretaker who's been murdered.
Oh, perhaps.
Like maybe that's where the blood is all from. Is like maybe that's like maybe it's actually a fresh kill, like somebody like it could even be somebody who's like just coming to mourn one of their loved ones at the grave, and they showed up a couple of hours too late, or sorry, a couple of hours too early, and like our protagonists here have shown up at the right time, whereas they showed up at the wrong time.
And that dead person's body is just elsewhere or eaten at this point.
Yeah,
perhaps, probably not.
Yeah, probably it is probably a this might be a case of just like not like like we're also dissecting this a little bit more, like we're being a little bit more hypercritical, but like that's not how bodies, like dead bodies, generally work when they're already in the ground.
Like even if it's a fresh one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is not because it says rotting.
Yeah.
Yes, I will continue to my last one.
Mm-hmm.
As we jogged, I took a look behind us, paranoid that whatever had dug up the grave was following us. I was right to be paranoid, but I wish I'd never looked. Standing there on the side of the cemetery road, I was able to discern the shadowy movements of a man in loincloth. It should be in a loincloth, but either way.
No, I can take it or leave it. Like man in loincloth, like
it sounds a little caveman-y.
It's a little caveman-y, but it's a little caveman-y, but it's like I don't know. Like I could also like I'd be fine with it as is.
Okay, well, either way, that's not even what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know.
I just noticed that in reading. Unfolding himself from laying on top of Jesus before climbing down the crucifix. So, I kind of wish earlier it was said that there was a statue of Jesus on the crucifix, because I initially imagined it just as the crucifix. That being said, though, if it was just a crucifix, it would have been described as a cross, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe that's on me, but I don't know. How'd you guys see it originally when it said crucifix?
I did actually see it as like a very large but ornate, just like a like a cross, like.
Yes.
And then when I realized like he's like unfolding off of Jesus on the crucifix. Oh, so I guess there's like my image changed to like include Jesus on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
So
what about you, Mikey?
Yeah, I think I just
early
went
or late.
Late.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're all in the same boat here. Nice.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, like, how the fuck did they not see this like lounging form on the top of that crucifix?
He wasn't necessarily there the entire time.
That's true, yeah. Although I'd like to like think that like maybe he was like geckos like slinking behind the crucifix, like kind of like putting his like his limbs out so that he was hidden behind the cross.
Mimicking the Jesus pose just
Yeah,
on the back.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Like,
what he was doing.
Yeah.
Or the creature could be the Jesus on the crucifix, but it's actually just the regular cross.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. That would have been so good if it like we had that detail at the beginning where like like a large crucifix complete with the Jesus like on it and such, and then like that's when he realizes that that it's actually like the Jesus on that crucifix, like as it unfolds off the cross. That's when he realized that wasn't a statue of Jesus. That was a strange man in a loincloth, which is usually how Jesus is portrayed on the cross. Actually, now I think about it, it's
that
like
would have been really cool.
So they just encountered ghoul Jesus,
especially if it still looked like a statue. You know,
they just
an
encountered
animated statue.
Oh God, like or it's like they just encountered Jesus, ghoul Jesus.
Jesus. Yeah, I'm down.
Yep. He died for your sins. Now you're gonna die for his.
Yeah. Yeah. Either way, the other thing I want to bring up with this is the amount of detail that they bring up when they see the man. Because when I first read this, I assumed they just kind of looked over his shoulder for a second and that's it. Yet he was able to see that it was a guy in a loincloth in the middle of the night in a graveyard with no lights.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, based on the images, the photo we do get of the like, yeah, I get what you're saying though. Like it definitely suffers from that trope in creepypastas where like we get like instant recognition from like a single flash of like vision of sight.
Well, my point is, when I first saw it, I imagined they have phone lights. They're using that to look around. So he would be holding the phone light in front of him and just looking over his shoulder as he's running away into the darkness, but able to see that detail.
Yeah.
Which actually may have not been what actually happened, though. What he probably did was he turned and pointed the flashlight at him, at which point you would be able to see that, like, the color difference, difference between his loincloth and his skin. You'd be able to tell it's just a guy.
Yeah, maybe I think what would have been better if it had actually brought up that like he stopped and turned around with the light to show the creature, the person, and was like kind of just like dumbstruck by it, and then it took R to like, dude, come on, let's go, like just like calling back to him to like snap him out of it to like start running again.
Yeah, that works.
Like that way it wouldn't have the like. I looked back for a moment, and what I saw is seared into my mind. Let me give you an exact 3-paragraph description of the creature.
Do that. It said it's a dude in a loincloth. That's all we got.
But still, like,
it's not incredible detail. It's a guy in a loincloth. You would easily be able to tell that in a split-second look. That is not what I'm getting at here.
Okay,
what I'm getting at here is it's in the middle of the night. It's dark out, and unless you specifically say you're pointing the light at him, I'm going to assume you're just looking in the darkness because you are concerned about running away right now.
Okay,
so
fair.
2 corrections I have are these. As we jogged, I took a look behind us, paranoid that whatever had dug up the grave was following us. I was right to be paranoid, but I wish I never pointed my light at him. So that says he looked behind and also pointed the light. Or you bring the light up closer to the front like this. As we jogged, I took a look behind us, pointing my light, paranoid that whatever I dug up the grave was following us. I was right to be paranoid, but I wish I never looked. Either way, if you mention that you're pointing the light, then that gives us a reason as to why you have some detail instead of it just being a black silhouette that's chasing you.
Yeah.
That's the end of my grammar.
Okay. Then on to Asherlots then. I'm a student at St. Francis Xavier's University in Antigonish, Nova Scotia, Canada. Connective tissue time. I selected this story because I saw it was a suggestion when we were doing tending to the graveyard. Like it popped up at the bottom of that story's like entry on creepypasta.wiki. Not knowing it was set in Canada. And this episode is going up the week after Canada Day.
Oh wow.
Like I checked it, like I was like, wait, when's this episode going up? It's like going up July 6th. When's Canada Day? July 1st. Oh, that's technically the Saturday. Canada Day is technically like the Saturday after this, or the Saturday before this episode gets launched. But like, I was like, huh.
There you go. Fuck yeah, bud.
Interesting. Yeah. And also, of course, because we got like an exact location and like geographic locations as well, I had to Google map it. It's a real place. Like Antigonish, St. Francis Xavier University, the cemetery, like it's all there on Google Maps.
Nice.
And like it's a nice scenic looking place. It's also like that area around Antigonish has like a lot of really weird and interesting names to like places. So yeah, it was a neat little like thing, just like kind of Google map over that area. And then another bit of connective tissue, starting with this quote here. But it's still a fun town to wander around at night. One of my friends, I'll call him R, and I have been all over the area. We've walked along the old highway, the new highway, road tracks, through the local park, just across campus. And this is in regards to their like night walks and stuff. I'm just like, wow, this was us, like Mikey and I and a bunch of our friends, like a few years back, when we would just shoot the shit and walk and talk around our local town at night. Like sometimes like 4 hours on end, like from like 1 to like 3 o'clock in the morning. And like we had a lot of really fond memories back then of that. And it's just like, so like thinking back on that and like while reading this, I was really easy for me to like familiarize with this character's initial setup, like what they do and like how I kind of like really connect with them and like connect with the whole situation. So again, just like connective tissues, man. It's the year of connective tissues. But I'll move on to the next thing I have. Last night while we were messing around in the park at around 1 a.m., I made a suggestion behind behind our campus and across the highway. There's an old and large graveyard on a wide hill called St. Ninian's Cemetery. You could even see it from the Student Union building. Now, I had been there as a child when my mom wanted to go find the grave of her uncle, but I barely remembered the experience. So I asked R if he wanted to go and try to find my great uncle's grave. He said, hell yeah. And we were on our way back across town. This is but one example that I have in this story. And between these examples and the photos that we get on site, like where they're taking pictures of like the cemetery, like in the photos we get as a whole throughout the story, this story like I said this earlier, this story definitely gives me a sense that the writer is writing what they know.
Yeah.
And it shows throughout the story. Like we get a sense of like regional awareness that you could only really get if the writer was like at that place.
Yes.
Like I actually was able to scroll down, like go into Street View to like St. Ninian Cemetery and see the location. Now, mind you, in like a more like seasonal, a warmer season, like that's where like when Street View was taking pictures and stuff. But like you can see like the hill with the path where the trees are kind of like are on either side of it going up the hill.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. If from a simple like just like top view like Google Maps thing, you can see like where the cemetery is across the old highway from the university and such. So yeah, it made the story feel a lot more like a realistic, like it grounded in reality for me. Like the fact that this person, like it clearly feels like this person was like is actually like either from or in Antigonish. So I was all for that, like kind of immersion level.
Yeah, it's the best way to do it.
Yeah. And then we get this thing here. The sky was cloudy, so the night was fairly bright. So at first I was confused by this because like usually the clearer the night is, the brighter it is. But that's mostly during the summer holidays, and then it brings up that it's January and it's like colder the winter months. And when I rethought about it, I was like, no, this actually makes sense because like I know when I'm in like in a town nearby and stuff like that at night in the winter, because of if it's cloudy over, it tends to be a little bit brighter because of all the light pollution bouncing off the clouds and coming back down. Even in like the darker parts of town, like it tends to have some low light ambient like visibility because of like light pollution from like nearby, like from the nearby town or like the buildings and such. So originally I was going to kind of like, well, I mean, actually, technically, like, shouldn't this be like the sky was cloudy, or despite the sky being cloudy, the night was fairly bright. Like, but like, no, that actually makes sense because like that's not that is actually in fact how light pollution works. But
and it's entirely possible that I wonder if he went on site like during a specific day that he wanted the kind of vibe to be and sat down and wrote the way it looked in real life.
Yeah, or he could have like taken the pictures, like gone out there, like or like written the story, gone out there, and gotten like waited for like for a particularly cloudy day and just taken the pictures for his story.
Yes,
like because he probably, I imagine like this, like again, this is speculation. I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
Hell, if the author hears this and wants to like confirm or anything like that, like I'm imagining they're from from that university. They're actually from that university, and they see that graveyard. It's like, oh man, it would be really cool to like write a creepypasta based off of like from there. And then they just went across the road or across the highway to the graveyard at night during the winter and took some photos for to amplify their story.
Yep.
So just kind of adding on to the whole like the immersion level and like the right what you know sort of vibe this story seemed to give. But I'll move on to the next thing I have here. R fell on his ass instantly due to the incline and massive amounts of ice all over the dirt path. I nearly followed suit, so we tried to walk on the side without stepping on any graves. A common tactic among us winter walkers: trudge through the side snow if the path is icy. Yeah. It's like it's a common occurrence and a common tactic when you live up in the Great White North. So it's just going in this trudge through the snow to avoid slipping and sliding. But my next thing here,
snow in your boots, or you get a broken pelvis. You choose.
Yeah, or worse.
Yeah.
Next thing I have here, though, what I found instead was this: a bone. After exclaiming in surprise, I called R over for him to take a look. He was also intrigued by the find. It had no meat on it, no blood splatter. It was simply stripped clean. It was pretty creepy to just find a bone lying in the middle of the graveyard like that. But the whole area was surrounded by forests, so it was more likely the remains of some feral cat or dog's dinner. So I like this, except I kind of wish they had elaborated in the story itself about the size of the bone. Yes, we do get a photo of the bone, but even that photo, when I was like looking at it, I was like taking a look. It's like there's
no banana for scale. I get it.
Exactly. Or even, like I'd even allow like if we had like a picture of their foot like for scale, like I'd be fine with that. Like that would make it better. Because as it is, like that could easily be like a chicken bone, and that's probably like the groove that it's like over top of is probably like a car tire like track or something like that. But it could easily be like just like a groove of like where like how like when water like flows through like ice and like when it's melting.
Yeah.
So it could easily be a chicken bone and that. So like there's nothing in that photo to really tell you the actual scale of that bone. So I just kind of wish the story itself had actually given us like a proper size of the bone to like delineate that, yes, or to confirm and clarify that, yes, this is actually a human bone.
But that's the other thing too. Would that break immersion a little bit? Because the character would be specifically trying to prove to the reader on his first picture the size of it, instead of just being, I found a bone. Okay, moving on. You know, like if you were in this situation, would you specifically try to have size relation stuff beside it?
I mean, like you could still do it in storytelling where like maybe like not the entire boot, but like part of the boot is shown in the picture. Because as it is, it's just there's like a leaf, I think, off like in the corner, or some grass or something like off in the corner, like next to the ice, like up in the top right, wherever that is. But like that's not enough. Like even like a boot, like the top, like the side of a boot or the tip of a boot at the bottom would have made more sense to like, or would have given us a proper scale of the bone.
Yeah, what would work? Like the boot for sure, but not necessarily his, because he's there with someone else. So just have it like he took this quick picture, but he got his buddy's boot in the picture because he's not trying to frame up a specific picture to hang on a wall. He's just clipping a picture quick, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that would accidentally also put in reference.
Yeah, or if it was near, if the bone was was on the ice but next to the snow, you could even have footprints, thus giving us a scale thing. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like exact, like, oh my god, it was exactly like 12 centimeters. Like just like it was a large bone. Like that, even a large bone in the story itself would have given me like, okay, so this isn't just simply a chicken bone or like a small animal bone. This is a large bone, probably, so which is insinuating in the story it's probably a human bone. So yeah, that was my little pet peeve about the photos. Like I like the photos, but like that one and like this part specifically with the bone, I wish we had some kind of like a little bit more clarification on what the size of the bone was. But I will take a step away from the nitpick nook and go to the next thing here, which is actually at the end of the story. I was right to be paranoid, but I wish I had never looked. Standing there on the side of the cemetery road, I was able to discern the shadowy movements of a man in a loincloth. You know what? I retract my statement. It should be in a loincloth.
Yeah, thank you.
Because I'm typonising over it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Of a man in a loincloth unfolding himself from lying on top of Jesus before climbing down the crucifix. I kept my scream inside and whispered 2 words to R: fucking run. I wouldn't let him look back I wouldn't let him look behind us as we sprinted out of St. Ninian's Cemetery and across the double-lane highway to safety. So, looks like a New England ghoul has decided to move up north. And you know, like this story is really short. Like this is it. That's like it's like barely 3. It clocks in at like 3 pages. And the encounter is definitely just one of those strange encounter type stories, like the kind that you see on YouTube, like where like that usually accompanies like a video of somebody walking through a graveyard and they think they see some weird humanoid and then they run. Like,
I mean, based on the title, yes, exactly that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah, Strange Occurrence. So yeah, it's a very simple, very common. It's a very like very simple, but like also very common in our world, in our real world. It's a very familiar type of like strange encounter sort of story that we always hear on YouTube or on like paranormal activity sort of like blogs or journals or what have you. But it would be a good seed idea, I think, for a Call of Cthulhu or Delta Green game. Though I guess in this case it would be M-Epic, since that's the Canadian version of Delta Green investigating paranormal or mythos situations. So it would be, and it would be pretty it would be a pretty simple ghoul hunt sort of game if you didn't add anything extra to the story. But at least this story kind of like gives you enough like content to kind of get the ball rolling, like for like inspiration.
Yeah.
As for the outcome of the story itself, I kind of wish we had gotten a little bit more. Like, this could have gone a little bit farther with Nair and R, perhaps. Like, even though they that night they thought they were safe because they were back at the campus and they didn't get followed initially. But then we could have had like another extension on the story where like they're being followed or they're being stalked at on campus now at night by this mysterious ghoulish man. Hell, maybe it turns out that this is actually the ghoul or revenant of Nair's great uncle.
Ooh.
Like, give us even that more, like a little bit more of that kind of complexity to the story. So
if his grave was actually disturbed.
Yeah, or like maybe he just digs. But yeah, this is obviously something like maybe burrows.
His uncle like Bugs Bunny did.
Yeah,
he was like digging underground. He popped up somewhere else.
Well, that's what ghouls do. Like ghouls in Lovecraft and like Delta Green and stuff, like they burrow through, and like so you don't actually see them. Like you can sometimes see their tunnel systems and stuff like that, but like it's mostly underground, so you rarely ever see how they move around. So, but yeah, I just like the story's pretty the story's pretty short, and it's a pretty simple like strange encounter sort of story. It's very relatable. It's very like realistic in terms of that kind of thing. I'm not saying those are real most of the time, because most of the time those are clearly hoaxes. But it's definitely like fits the bill for like that kind of like, I don't know, I guess like comfort food kind of like strange encounter. Like it's very like, for me, it's very like, oh, I feel at home reading the story because it's like it's very familial. But there's not a whole lot here otherwise because it's pretty short. Like, and the characters like they nope out and they never see this creature again, as far as we know, because there's no like extra bit to it. So
yeah, this is an unintentional Nope-November episode.
Yeah, basically.
It's hard to find specific Nope stories unless you read the whole story, you know.
Yeah, but that's honestly it for me for actual thoughts. So, Mikey, these stands for evil.
Okay. So my first actual thought here is, as we approached it, though, I stopped dead in my tracks as I heard a ha, ha in the distant. It was an odd laugh, not a natural one, but disjointed, almost like someone just saying the words ha, ha. And like, it's just a crow or bird. Like, there's nothing really scary about this.
I didn't think about it like it was a bird.
Yeah.
I never even considered that it could have just been a bird calling. Because
Yeah.
the way it described it, I imagined it to sound like this. Ha, ha. Like a human clearly saying it.
But it could be more like ha, ha. Like
yeah.
a crow or some kind of like large, like a large night bird or something like that. I mean, yeah, like honestly, this story kind of just seems like these kids spooked themselves before they even got into the cemetery.
A little bit.
Yeah. Like they thought they saw some lights in the cemetery, but then they realized, oh no, that's just like lights from a street light on the other side of the cemetery. Just kind of like reflecting between like tombstones as they're moving. So, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I just saw that as a bird.
Yeah, that's
it was like, and then I have a note here, but after doing a Google Street View, it doesn't matter, but I'll say it anyway. So cemeteries are usually closed at night. At least in Ontario, the ones around here are fenced in.
Yeah.
So
Well,
but when I googled the cemetery in the story, they have no fence. So
yeah.
there's
So-
nothing to stop them from walking into the graveyard.
Yep.
So yeah, so it's a moot point. And then my next thing here is about the monster. Like to me, I feel like we need more description. Like all we get is one sentence about shadowy movements of a man in a loincloth that could actually be the Jesus statue.
Which would be real
moving.
cool if we got more.
Yeah, but as it stands, it could literally just be a shadow that moved on the crucifix, so it made it look like the illusion of movement. And thus there's nothing actually chasing them.
So it was swamp gas, or it was a optics situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bad optics. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's nighttime, right? So it's like, did I just see movement? I don't know. Like,
yeah. Also, the way he because he again it is that kind of thing where like he looked back for and then saw like the form and in a loincloth, and then I assumed continued running. So like in his mind is probably playing tricks on him and thinking that like, oh, that Jesus statue, the Jesus on the statue moved because I like quickly turned my head and turned back to run. Like yeah. But it'd be so cool too if it was just actually like a Jesus ghoul.
Yeah, really would.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I took this story the super mundane way, so it just didn't have any scariness to me.
And now I'm starting to get recall all the times that we would hang out, Mikey, like off recording with some of our friends and watch like YouTube videos of like scary videos, like or like scary creatures caught on video, and us just like I'm starting to remember your skepticism about so many of those. And like, bear in mind, I also was pretty skeptical about them. But there's definitely some of them where like, oh no, that I don't know how they're real, and you're just like, no, it's all fake.
Yeah, and that's the end of my actual thoughts.
All right, gamer.
Okay, let me see. I talked about that. So when I first started reading, it's saying like I'm a student at St. Francis. Yeah. So when I started reading, it was saying like I'm a student at St. Francis Xavier University in Antigonish, Canada, and all that. First off, hell yeah, Canada. But secondly, we just came off a story where we tore apart the story because of its college/university life.
I know. Yeah.
So getting into this, I'm like, oh god, am I going to be repeating the same stuff we just talked about? Thankfully, no. It had really nothing to do with school, so I'm very glad of that.
And honestly, even the stuff that it does like lightly bring up with like college life, it's like, no, that checks out.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no, campus life is sometimes boring, depending on like the college town you're in. So,
So I'll move on with this quote here. Not long after, we were crossing over the cold pavement with some haste to set foot on the frozen dirt road of the graveyard. There wasn't a gate preventing us from getting in, so as far as we were concerned, it was open season. The sky was cloudy, so the night was fairly bright. Thanks to this, we were able to make out the basic layout of the cemetery from the entrance. Did you miss that?
You were able to make out.
Yeah, thanks to this, we were able to.
Yeah,
The basic
we were
layout
able
of
to
the
make out.
cemetery.
Oh, yeah,
That's the reason they were going there in the first place.
yeah. They're just
For the
macking on each
mood.
other. Yeah,
Hell yeah.
they're actually just like what we don't see, because we never get a description of R or Nair,
Yeah.
is that they're actually just goths.
Oh, totally.
They're goth college
They're
kids.
way into this.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then just shit happened when they were just going in there to have fun.
They're way into this, and they're way into themselves.
Yeah. Which
So would
makes
this
me
make
question
this
how long the loincloth man was just kind of watching them before he decided to attack.
Ugh.
Who knows what the hell they were doing?
That's an extra level of creep. It's like, I like to watch.
Yeah. He's like, hey, when he laughs.
Oh god, yeah. Ha, ha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and that gives whole new meaning to the sentence. Since we were reasonable young adults, I said we should split up.
Oh. Oh no. R just wasn't a great kisser.
Yeah. That's all it was. But I shall move on.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, quick aside.
Uh-huh.
I just got finished editing to our Patreon book review of Twilight New Moon.
Oh, no.
So like, you bringing this up, it's just like it's got me like on the brain of like pararomantis thing. It's like, damn it. What is with this connective tissue? Like all these like different happenstances just happen to be happening while we're reading a story. But yeah.
Yes. So the next one.
Mhm.
Next one's basically just in regards to them splitting up. They agreed to split for 20 minutes to search. Even after like they heard something, they both know that they heard something and they were freaked out about it. And then they're like, yeah, we'll
Yeah.
split up, because splitting up is always a good choice when you're both like scared
Also,
and heard
this-
someone laugh from the distance. But we wouldn't have a story otherwise, is what I assume.
Yeah, that's well, and also like, yeah, I'm trying to like rationalize. Like, would I do that in this situation? Like, if I was at like with some friends, like out in a graveyard, would I like split up, try and find my grandfather's graveyard or my great uncle's graveyard or gravestone? I was like, maybe not.
If you heard something that
Honestly, if we heard
point, last time we talked about this, when you said you took the dog out and you heard something running in the forest, getting closer and closer. If that happened in the middle of the cemetery, would you split up?
Absolutely fucking not.
Yeah, there you go.
Fuck,
That's
I'd probably
fear.
I would probably be encouraging us all to leave.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? Let's come back during the day.
Let's cut our losses at no deaths
Yeah, exactly.
instead of having one.
Mhm.
But yes, and my last note is just in regards to the creature. I like the creature. It raised a lot of questions that go completely unanswered, but in my opinion, in a good way, because like the characters wouldn't have necessarily found out, so we shouldn't have either.
Yeah.
Because like this is a very realistic nope situation. They just get the fuck out of there. And this creature, if it doesn't want to like specifically hunt them and it just wants to survive like an animal would, then it wouldn't necessarily chase them all over town for no damn reason when it could easily find something a lot easier to hunt, you know?
I.e., yeah, like again, like if we're going off this is like some kind of like corpse eater.
Yeah.
Like it's not interested in the living.
No, it probably just wants them to get the fuck out of there so it won't screw with them.
Yeah.
So in that aspect, I like all this because you get what you should be getting, you know?
Yeah, it kind of, that's part of the charm, I think, of this story for at least you and me. I don't know about Mikey; he doesn't seem to like this. but like that for me, like that is part of the charm as well. Is like the familiarity of like the setting, but also the how this basically feels like this could have been a real account that what's his name, RedNovaTyrant like actually had while he was like in that cemetery. like with his friend. Like that could like it seems like one of those like again like that could have easily been like just a graveyard like kind of make it mundane. It could have been like they might have like flourished it up for the story, but that could have just been like an open grave in the dead of night in January that they found.
Mm-hmm.
And then like they thought they encountered some kind of humanoid figure that could have just been like the caretaker. And again, like RedNovaTyrant just decided to like take that encounter they had and like creepypasta it up a little bit. So, but yeah, like the groundwork there is like it's very rooted in like it's grounded in a sense of reality.
Mm. And I like that, but that is the end of my notes.
Okay. Well, I suppose we'll move on to final thoughts then. So that I just said it. I'm willing to give this partial recommendation because part of it's partly because it's a well-described setting and like set up. And I'm a sucker for these kind of creepy encounters. Like even if they are this brief and even if they aren't real, like those videos on YouTube and stuff like that, like I don't give a shit. I like to watch those because they have a sense of like creepiness of like somebody in that moment getting fucking creeped out by something they've supposedly seen. And this basically screams that exact type of like mood. So I'm here for that. I think the story could have been added on or even developed even further, like to have the creature maybe start stalking Nair and R on campus and such. Hell, this could be like the first story, and then there could be a follow-up story. Perhaps the sequel is called An Even Stranger Occurrence on Campus.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, obviously, like it is a rather short story, and it's not like the characters are never in any real danger aside from like getting creeped out by this, seeing all these bones and stuff like that, and then they rightly nope out of before like harm's way is imminent. But honestly, like it was a very like kind of familial story that I really warmed up to. So that's why I'm willing to partially recommend it. And it would make great. It would be great for like a game idea for like a Delta Green game, like the start of a mystery involving a group of investigators looking into ghouls eating corpses in a graveyard. So, but yeah, that's my recommendation, partial recommendation. Mikey, the E stands for evil.
Well, obviously I didn't like it.
Fairly fair.
You don't say. No.
The supposed creepy parts, like the bird, as I mundaify it, and the creepy Jesus statue, which may or may not have come to life, or whatever. Like it. The problem is we don't get a lot of description of even a monster until that one sentence that talks about the shadowy movements of the guy in a loincloth. Like,
yeah,
if there was more to that, then like he saw that and then the he heard the laughter again, like just something to associate those two things to the monster, or that it is the monster, like that would help it to, or at least in my mind, to help solidify that there is in fact a monster. But considering we only get one line, my mind goes to the super mundane with it. Just he didn't notice that there was a Jesus on that crucifix when he entered because it was dark.
Yeah, that's fair. Also, I think
it was running after him. Like,
yeah,
we saw it running after him though.
I don't know.
It didn't run after him. It got it slinked off the statue and like stood there on the side of the hill. That was it. It didn't actually chase them.
Okay, but he saw that it was a silhouette that he can
Yeah.
say that it looked like a a man in a loincloth. How do you explain that out?
Yeah, that is very peculiar. Like that at worst, that is a homeless man, or no, at best, that is a homeless man. At worst, that is a homeless crazy man, or a homeless cannibal man. I also, to kind of help your point, I guess, a little bit there, Mikey. You know, another thing that they could have added to like kind of bolster like the clues, because I will agree, the hints and like kind of the build up they do give us is kind of lackluster. There isn't a whole lot there aside from the bones. Look at the bones. What would have made it even better is if if one of them had noticed bare human footprints, and I mean like shoeless human footprints.
Man bear kind of.
Fuck off! I knew this was exactly going to happen. I meant shoeless and sockless human footprints.
Yes.
All right.
So
yeah.
Basically, I wasn't creeped out by this, so I'm not going to recommend it.
That is fair. If you're not creeped out, yeah. All right, and gamer.
So for me, I like that it's simple, to the point, easy to read, doesn't trip over itself or get bogged down in the weeds by explaining a bunch of unnecessary stuff that's slowing the whole thing down. It describes the setting really well, gives pictures, and they're not unrealistic pictures, because it's not like we got a picture of the open grave. We got a picture of the creature. I would actually dislike this if we had those pictures, because those are not realistic pictures to take in that situation. Because yeah, it's quote unquote proof or whatever, but in that situation, he wouldn't be taking pictures. He's worried and concerned, like, what the fuck's going on? He's confused. And as soon as like this creature starts moving out, he's not gonna be like, hang on, let me get my picture out. Check the focus. Is the flash on? Okay. No, he'd be just running, not worrying about getting proof. He's not maybe if he's a reporter or something, he would always have that in the back of his head to take pictures. But he's not. He's just a college kid.
Yeah, this isn't the found footage film Wreck, where it's just like, like record everything. God damn it.
Yeah, everything.
Keep recording. God damn it.
So I give it props for that, even though realistically those pictures aren't here because that's a lot of extra work of actors and potentially costumes and stuff like that. Yeah, like
it would either be like costumes or like of setup, or like that had to be a really, really convincing Photoshop.
It would. But overall, the immersion stays up pretty well and tells a story, at least to me, because it's all explained really well. They make choices that aren't unrealistic of what people would do. You know, like, okay, they split up. That's kind of weird, but I don't know. I liked it. I didn't really have too many points where I struggled over it. Yes, it could be better, but literally every single story in the entire world could be better. Because nothing's perfect except for who is phone. So plus it's Canadian, so that's bonus points.
Yeah.
So I'll recommend it. Still, you have not swayed me, Mikey.
Well, I think honestly, this one is definitely a case of like our opinions, our perspectives are different in this case, because like I think this is creepy. Like just this whole setup is kind of creepy. Mikey, on the other hand, like doesn't get creeped up by this kind of thing, and like so like it's definitely like a case of like our listeners are gonna have to like whoever they align up with like the most, like that's like probably the person they're gonna follow in this case.
And I totally get why you weren't creeped out by this, Mikey, because I also wouldn't be if I immediately just heard that as a bird. Like I 100% get that, but I took it at face value. Of it's saying that it's a dude saying haha, so I'm going to believe that. I literally did not even consider the option of a bird until you told me.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, I'm like, shit, it probably was just a bird. Fuck.
Yeah, well, especially given like even like again, like I'm almost, I feel like it's weird that I'm defending this, because like I do like the story as is, but like even like for the story, kind of like to the story and to Mikey's credit, like Yeah, that's probably a bird because like these two characters have been spooked already prematurely by things that they've already rationalized.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they were walking up to the graveyard, they thought they saw lights and like moving, but then they realized it's just like a stationary light somewhere in the graveyard, probably like at a tombstone, like because there are memorial like those little like solar powered candles or something like that people put on tombstones and such, or a light beyond the graveyard that as they're moving, it's like it's being distorted by like the things that are blocking its or like kind of coming in and out of its way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and they bring that up at the beginning of the story, and then they hear that ha ha, and it's like we hear that as ha ha, but it was likely more like a distorted like ha ha, like a bird or a crow, like almost like
or
a
Mickey
caw
Mouse
of some kind.
And the story's ruined now.
No, that just makes it creepier. It's like, oh god, it's Mickey Mouse ghoul. God. But yeah, like yeah, it's definitely just like it's just a point of perspective. Honestly, at some point I'm almost wondering if we should do an episode about what scares us. Because I'm just kind of curious, like what freaks you guys out in stories or in like kind of thing. Because like, yeah, but yeah, that's something for another time.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody out there, you can sound off in the comments where this gets posted, and like if you want to hear an episode about us talk about what scares us in media, like what gets under our skin when we're consuming media. Or in real life, like what freaks us out. But yeah, I guess that'll do it for this week's episode. So recommendations out of 3, like one full, one partial, and then one non-recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
If you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below where this gets posted, whether it be on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, or Tumblr. We're all on Twitter. Mikey is at the E stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W at the end because his name is very long.
Yeah, can't do anything about it at this point.
Yeah, it's practically a Reddit no sleep story entry like title.
It kind of is.
And I'm at
my title after it as well, as a servitor of he shall not be named.
Yeah. And I'm at Review Cultist. If you'd like to send us emails, you can go to aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com. We can also leave suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spooky stories. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah. And if you'd like to help support our show financially, you can go to Patreon. Look up Al Dente Rigor Mortis and select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tiers with special episodes, early access, extra content. To our patrons that are helping support the show, thank you guys immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. And as always and forever, we very much appreciate that. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you immensely. Because without your listenership, it'd be like screaming into that void, that deep, dark void. Or if you didn't write these stories and post them on like a wiki or Reddit, No Sleep, or SCP Foundation, we really wouldn't have much of a show because we'd have nothing to talk about. So, thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the E stands for evil.
And I'm the Gamer in Yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigor Mortis. Sleep well, eh? Stop the presses! Wait! We aren't done yet. Okay.
Oh?
I just realized another connective tissues time.
CTT.
So,
love it.
Yeah. So this is probably going to be old news when this gets recorded or when this gets posted. But at the time of this recording and at the time of our reading this story, let me tell you a story about what happened a couple of days ago in British Columbia. A woman who owns a couple of horses. She has a ranch. Like she goes like and rides those horses out in like some forest trails and such near her property. She was riding along the trail and she spotted a dead deer, like the body of like the corpse of a deer. And so she was like, oh, that's sad, but that's nature's way. And so she figured like some wolves or some wild animal is going to come and probably like pick away the bones of the horse or the picks of the bones of the deer and such. So she came back to that area that day and put a trail cam nearby so that she could at least like, capture the animals. And so that like doing it, like she could capture that scene or capture that event. The next day they found on the camera from the trail cam from the night before, not wild animals eating the dead deer, but 2 semi-naked women eating the deer, like coming up to it, like on like kind of like their hands and knees, or like their hands and like kind of like almost in a crouched position, and with their bare hands taking like the leg of the deer and started chewing on the deer and eating it.
For real?
I am not joking. If you can check it, you can Google like 2 deer women in British Columbia, and it'll there are several articles about this. We have photo evidence of the 2 women eating the deer. Like we have a shot of the trail cam. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Are you sure it's not like intentionally done? It sounds so intentional, right?
I know, but if it is, it could be. I'll fully admit it could be a hoax, but it's on multiple news articles. There are multiple news reports about it.
It's fucked up though if that is real.
Now, mind you, like some of this is like the main newspaper articles I'm finding on Google is like Thager or I guess like Tager or the Thager News. There's the Daily Mail, Mirror, Yahoo News. So like those are the news pages that are coming up, but like it popped up on YouTube, it popped up online this week while I was reading this story, and I just clicked. Now it's like, wait, they are like, because like they are naked in that they are like their breasts are revealed, and they're wearing loincloth like like garments.
Just exactly what we just read.
Yeah,
it's also in Canada.
And it's in Canada. It's on the other. It's on the West Coast rather than the East Coast.
Oh god, that means that they're everywhere then.
Yeah, and mind you, it's a deer that they're eating, not a dead human body. But
I don't think they're going to be picky.
Yeah, and there's the image that the from the trail cam. Like, yeah, it's. Yeah, this was shot in this footage. Like this woman found in where was it? British Columbia. It should say somewhere on here. Powell River, British Columbia, and it's just like, the fuck.
That is really fucked up if that's actually real and not just staged.
Yeah, like who knows if it is real or if it's like, if it's a hoax. Like it kind of it screams like a hoax, right? Like, but it's
really
like
does.
But yeah, like this has been circulating on various news networks the last couple of days. So
see, I hate how the world is these days, because like I'm gonna put on that T-shirt saying I want to believe, because I do want to be able to believe this stuff, but because of like CG and like Photoshop and all that stuff being as good as it is and as easily accessible to everyone, there's no wonder anymore, because the first thing you're going to assume is that it's staged or Photoshop. Yeah.
Like
it's unfortunate.
Like it's the same thing. Like you have to either be, you have to be like there in that moment. Or like even because like imagine even being like the person like that finds this on their trail cam, and it's just like your gut instinct is like, what the fuck is this? But the rationale might be that like somebody's fucking around with you.
Yeah,
and then you're trying.
Yeah, that's another way to see it. They may have been like walking around, they saw a camera just recording that, so like, oh, let's get in costume and come back and scare the hell out of them. Like maybe it's just that.
Yeah. But no, I had to bring it up because like right off recording, we were like, I was talking to my co-host here, and I brought up this witch's brew, these witches that were eating this dead deer, and I was like, wait, they match the description of the dude from our story that we just did. Get the
When
recorder
was this
back
story
on.
released, by the way?
This story was the episode we did, right? Like the story we just covered.
Yes.
Let's find out actually.
2 days ago.
Wow. No. History. This came out January 2020.
Wow. So just a hell of a coincidence.
Yeah.
What's with this year, man? There's always something that is extremely relevant to every time we do recording.
Yeah, it's the year of connective tissues.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right. Anyway, we hope you all enjoyed that quick thing after audio or after episode audio, but I had to bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
So
they're gonna be watching like the progress bar, and we'll be doing the outro. And there's
so
like
much
10
longer
minutes left. It's like, how long is this outro?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Sleep well and all that junk.